In my talk on black and white, I spoke to flake white and how it contained lead and how it's difficult to find. Now, there are other colors that also have health hazards associated with them, and you usually find that printed on the tube. And basically the hazard is that you don't want to drink it, ingest it, or spray it, or let children use it. It's basically a heavy metal hazard. And one other thing about it is that if you have rinse water, cats like to drink your rinse water. They don't care what color it is. When I'm using these types, and usually it's the cadmiums, I'll cover my rinse water with a lid like this or something to keep my kitty cat out of the rinse water. Now I've also found that the discussion on colors is going to take longer than 10 minutes per session. So I'm going to break it into 2 sessions. It'll be a part A and a part B. So we're going to talk about the color red now. You know, when I look at some of the Renaissance paintings and the medieval paintings, you see some very beautiful reds in there. I'm not sure if we still remember or can find out what kind of pigment they were using to make those reds. Look at some of Botticelli's paintings, beautiful reds. I'm not even sure where they came from. I would guess that the colorman who made that guild was probably out of Florence, and they probably imported a lot of different pigments to make that. Now, with any color, there's always a shift to its complement. You take red, for instance. If it shifts to the yellow far enough, it ceases to be red and becomes orange. The color index number at that point changes from PR, pigment red, to PO, pigment orange. And when you shift back to the other side toward blue, it shifts from PR, pigment red, to PV, pigment violet. So what we're going to try and do is find one that has very little shift either to the yellow or to the blue side. The reason for that, if you want a very basic palette with no consideration to the characteristics of how the watercolor is going to act on your paper, basically like if you want to use acrylics or oils, you want one that is purely red or purely blue or purely yellow. And then you can mix those and make every color that you ever wanted with the addition of black and white. So I'm going to demonstrate about 9 or 10 colors of red and the various shifts, and hopefully we'll see one that falls into that spectrum. And then you can go off and do your own experiment and find the red that you want to put on your palette as your basic red, and then you can pick the ones that shift to either side as you so desire. Okay, we'll get started now with the demonstration of the colors. Okay, the first reds we're going to look at, this is a very old red. It's called fuchsia, and this is the genuine color here. And I'm going to put a little bit of this here, and so we can see basically what it looks like. I'm not sure how this will turn out on the camera, but this is the old-timey, just ground out of a natural pigment, and as you can see it has a brownish tint, which is really a combination of red, blue, and yellow, and that would make sense. It's an earth color, and it looks earthy. We're going to take the modern equivalent of that now, which is quinacridone fuchsia. And look at the difference in this. This is a beautiful red. You can see the difference in the intensity of the color. This is the modern equivalent of that. And this is a nice red, but it has a tendency to lean toward the blues, and it has a slightly purple tint to it. It's a beautiful red. Okay, so we'll try two more natural reds that all they did was grind stuff up and put it in there. Well, let me label this first. The first one has no color index number. It's just red fuchsia. Now this one, the quinacridone, has a PR number, a color index number, and this is PR 206. And I'll explain this later, because there are some color index numbers, which I spoke to you earlier about. They're the same, but are different colors, different shades of colors. But let's look at two natural reds again. This is rhodonite, and it has no PR number. It's just a natural pigment. And it's a beautiful red also. It also has a cast toward the blue side a little bit. But it's still beautiful red. I like using these natural colors a lot of times. They respond differently. This one was ground very fine. When you start using pigments, you'll find that you can tell how fine the pigment is, or whether it's a dye, or how coarsely it's ground, simply by the way it goes onto your paper. Here's one from a semi-precious jewel, garnet, my birthstone. And you know they use a lot of semi-precious and precious stones before. And look how dark and red it is. Let me see if I can lighten it up a bit. It's a very, very deep red, so I can take a lot of the pigment off and see what it really looks like underneath it. And as you can tell, it's garnet. That's what my birthstone looks like. And it's really light. So I'll label these also real quick. Different R. And G. Just so I'll remember what it's like. Okay. Now I'm going to go into what is called quinacridone red. It actually has a color index number of PV, which I told you means pigment violet. But we'll put it up here and see what it looks like. That means it should be shifting to the blue to the point where it's no longer considered red. But to me, I see very little shift there. I'm not real sure why this particular manufacturer decided to call that PV 19. It really isn't. I think it's mislabeling. And now I'm going to go to another one called quinacridone coral. And the reason why I'm going to do that is the next manufacturer has the same color index number as this color does right here. Oh, let me label this. This is PV 19. That's why I'm not sure. Okay. This concludes part A on the colors red. So we'll proceed on now to part B on the color red.